Hello, everyone. I'm extremely excited about today's class with Miami's very own, the pride of the 305, the
Uh,
great Nicole Henry, somebody that I admire a lot, not only as an artist, but as a human being. And we've been extremely lucky not only to have her year after year at her famous winter concert at the Colony Theater that gets sold out in 31 seconds. But we actually were collaborating with Nicole in a wonderful world premiere that some of you got a snippet.
uh,
We were able to do six preview performances of A Wonderful World, the life of Louis Armstrong. And Nicole was one of the stars of the musical that I am sure you'll be able to see once again as soon as the world returns to its normalcy. As you know, this is Mastermind classes, so we're going to be for the next hour or so talking with Nicole, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her life's journey. She's also going to talk about her craft and how she does the magic that she's able to do, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So in that spirit, Nicole, welcome to Miami New Dramas Mastermind series. How are you doing?
I am wonderful, Michelle. It's great to be with you. I adore you and appreciate you, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm good.
Likewise, I've been waiting for weeks for this class, so I'm terribly excited about it. All right, Nicole, tell me everything about you. Where were you
Oh,
born?
great. I'm from Philadelphia, born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and raised in
The
Buck.
world of the nation, the eyes of the nations are right now there in
Trust me.
Philadelphia. But anyway.
Trust me. I'm eager and anxious and praying. Yes, but so from the city of brotherly love, and I don't take that lightly. Philly's a great town to be from, and real people, everyday people, and everybody gets along, and there's just such a gorgeous mix of nationalities in Philadelphia, and I mean, from Irish to Italian to Black to Puerto Rican to Indian to Chinese, Japanese. I mean, it's just a really beautiful melting pot. I've always loved Philadelphia and have grown to love it more as an adult. Or I can understand it because, you know, it's so funny when you grow up somewhere, people ask you, oh, how was it growing up in Philadelphia or growing up in Bucks County because I'm in a suburb? And you don't know because what do you have to compare it to? But then, you know, of course, as an adult, you can look back and so when I go now, I love the accent. I wish I could, right? And but yeah, right, raised in Bucks County, which of course so many people know because of the theater world in Bucks County, and of course I didn't realize that how famous it was for that until I left. So yeah.
And when did you leave?
I left when I was 17. I graduated from Ben Salem High School, go Owls, and then had a full scholarship to go to the University of Miami. So that's exactly where I went. I wanted to go somewhere with sunshine and palm trees.
And you've never left, or you leave for seasons, but return to
Right.
it. So before we talk about your university years, like
Mhm.
when did you discover your love for music, your gift with your voice? Like how? And this is, you know, a lot of people now listening have kids that are eager to continue their musical education. So how was that journey for you?
You know, it's so interesting. I was raised around music. My sister and I loved watching Fame, of course, that great TV show. When The Wiz came out, I mean, I think it came out much before before I was born, or right around when I was born. But it became a television show. You know, it was on Broadway, I think, in '75. But then when they put the movie together and had it on TV, we loved that. You know, we had the album, so we sang along to that. My parents listened to the, you know, Motown and good soul music from the '70s. So we always had the Commodores and the Spinners and Patti or LaBelle at the time. Um, and then my aunt, my dad's sister, has always been a vocalist, and she actually had an original music band in the '70s, in the late '70s. It was called Silk, or Anglo-Saxon Brown was the name of it first when they were in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia, the DMV area. Anglo-Saxon Brown, and they changed their name to Silk. And look that up. They're so good. Debbie Henry, her voice is just
Mm.
incredible. So she was always singing, and we'd have her albums. So we'd sing along to that. We grew up on the Aretha Franklin album. So the music was just so good in the '70s that I it's hard for me to think that there was a better decade for music in America, aside, of course, from like the 20s and 30s and the 40s with jazz. But putting it all together.
Listen, I mean, disco music was also in the 70s. So how do you justify that?
No, don't, because
No,
there's some
I'm joking. I'm
amazing.
joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. So, okay. So did you take, you learn music like you learned to talk because it was just all around you, right?
Yes, it really was. It
But
really
when
was.
did you take singing classes at some point or music classes growing up?
Okay, so I sang in school choir and church choirs. My third grade teacher wouldn't, my choir teacher wouldn't let me have a solo until fifth grade.
If
But
she knew now where you are.
yes, where are you? So to Miss Faye, yes. And I kind of knew that I had a voice, and just because I think in church choir, that's when I figured out that I had a voice, because I was given a solo first there at church choir, before school. And it wasn't that I thought it was the best voice, or I wanted it to be the best, or I wanted to always be the one to sing. I wasn't very competitive about my singing. I just really did enjoy singing. I sang in school choirs throughout school, all the way through 12th grade. I took cello lessons for 6 years, starting in middle
Oh,
school, because my mom, even though we had a piano in the house, and I wish I had taken, studied piano, but my mom was like, you and your sister have to play some instrument. So my sister chose violin and viola, and I, of course, had to be different. I said, oh, I'm going to do the cello. And it's my favorite. That and guitar are my two favorite instruments.
do you still play the cello every now and then?
No, you know what? Maybe about, oh, 15 years ago, I rented a cello for about 6 months to a year, and played it from time to time. And it's like riding a bike. You definitely always
Hmm.
remember your hand positions and the bowing. And I love classical music. It's just, to me, well, one, I love it because it doesn't have lyrics, at least the ones that I listen to, so I can play it when I'm working throughout the day. And it just makes me feel like you can enjoy life, because it's just so, the fabric of classical music to me is I mean, I danced ballet too, so I think that relationship
So
to
when did you dance? I mean, your schedule must have been crazy.
you,
You're in the choir, cello, ballet. Like,
you know
uh,
what? And I have to, after I get off this call, I'm going to call my mom and just say thank you again. We didn't have a lot, but she made sure that we were busy and that we experienced as much as she could afford to allow us to experience. And, so I'm super grateful. You don't realize what your parents are doing for you. And then you look back and you're, how did my mom, make it happen and put food in our mouth? So, yeah.
we are all collectively thankful for her.
Oh, thank you. I will pass on the message for sure. Yeah, yeah. So,
And so
but
when did ballet? When did you start ballet?
in middle school, in middle school, in fact,
So middle school, you started cello and ballet.
yes, sixth grade, I started
Wow.
cello. Um, Actually, I might have been in fifth grade when I danced ballet, because I think I did that until 11th grade. So could have been earlier. I know my sister and I did it. We had two cousins that did it with us. So yes, I was on point. And one day I did the Nutcracker. I had all the little kids come out from underneath my skirt, and you did.
Yeah.
It was fun, a lot of fun.
All right. So when did you decide that you wanted to, study music and go to UM? How did
Yeah.
that?
Well, it's so okay. So what is amazing to me, and if you, like you said, talking, if there are children out there or students out there or younger, adults getting out of college or going into college, or parents with their children, I never understood how you got from singing in the choir to potentially being like a Mariah Carey or then a Whitney Houston.
Mhm.
I've always just assumed you got discovered. I didn't know that there was a pathway. Like, even though we watched Fame on TV, I didn't know that there was like an art school in Philadelphia that I could go to
Hmm.
and be in that track. I didn't, I went to a public school in Ben Salem, and even when I went to college, I was like, well, what am I going to do with music degree? I don't want to teach music, and you just get discovered. So I didn't realize. Yes, I really didn't realize that there was a pathway, like go to school, study music, meet tons of other musicians, write songs, start bands, go to New York or stay in your hometown and start playing out at clubs. I didn't know the whole process. And the wild thing is that even with my aunt being a singer, a professional singer and full-time singer, I didn't even think to go to her and say, how do I do this? How can I make this happen? And so it just goes to show that even though I was raised and I did well in school, so I was a smart kid, I had no idea how one begat a career, how you got a career in entertainment. So I nowadays, of course, when I try to talk to kids, and I sit on a couple boards of organizations, or have in the past and one right now, and I love talking to kids about how to do it. How to do it, how to put the time in. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because this is the heart of a lot of important conversations. Is that people, they have a desire, but they don't have a map. So they don't know that it's possible for them to achieve it, or even how to start. And that kind of fantasy of you just get discovered and that's it. It's not an empowering, I guess, and I guess it boils down also to, to the democratization of the arts, right? If certain people assume that art is not for them, that singing is not for them, it really closes the doors for a lot of immigrant kids. I mean, something that we see often in Miami New Drama when we're working with our education program that has been expanded. It's a lot of kids just have no idea that a life in the arts could be for them.
Right.
I mean, you're lucky, even though you didn't ask your aunt, you knew that there was somebody in your family that was a professional singer.
Right.
And and a lot of kids don't have, that luck of having,
that reference kind of, that point of reference. Yeah.
And here's absolutely. So, so we are in how exactly you got to choose and when was the moment to say, yes, I'm going to study music professionally.
Okay, so I went to college, studied architecture for 2 years, switched to advertising and theater.
So that was in UM.
Never went to the
UM with the idea of studying architecture.
Totally.
Wow.
Yes, and a 5-year program. And then the first year, I kind of knew it wasn't for me, but I said, don't quit, tough it out. So I did another year. And after Structures 3, which is like, physics for construction, I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. This is not me. And I'm not a good architect. I think I'm better at form and function and maybe interior movements and how, humans move through space and utilize a space, that part of it. But I was not excited about becoming an architect. You know what? And one of the things is, it's like, I like the idea of creating, but why I love singing and what I love about one of the things about singing and why I got into it right out of college is that it's so immediate. You don't have, like, architecture is like you start on something and it's like 6 years later you have a building. I'm like, are you kidding me? I have to wait this long. And the thing about singing, it's like one of the reasons I didn't go right into theater right after college, one of the few reasons, is because music was so immediate. I could get to work really quickly and find jobs, and that's what I think still is just a great thing. You could stand up in an audience and sing a song a cappella, and it's different than doing a monologue. But man, I remember when I switched my major and put theater as my double major, I reflected back on being a kid and like looking in the mirror and doing like soul searching. What am I going to study? And it's definitely theater, because I remember I always wanted to communicate with masses of people at a time, and I felt that's what my mom would always say. Nikki, stop being so dramatic. And I'm like, but that's what I want to be. And I remember that specifically. So I was like, I'm studying theater. Yeah. Nice.
And so you change your major to theater in UM. Yes. And how was that experience? Did you ever do plays back in Philly in high school? Were you?
I had done 1 year of show choir, but in like ninth grade, I think it was, or maybe 10th grade in high school. And even then, I didn't really put the connection to like Broadway. I wasn't really a Broadway kid, and I didn't know a lot of Broadway musicals, but I remember enjoying it so much, but I kind of didn't go back to it because I was like into sports and cheerleading and student government and all these other things. So I just didn't line up to go back to that. But it's funny what you look back at and you say, I always loved it. I always loved it. So I'm so lucky and honored to do what I love. And give me text or give me some copy or lyrics, and I'm in heaven. I'm in heaven.
So you were in your second year in college. You switched to theater, and how was that world? The theater kids? Did you felt you were one of the theater kids? You know how?
Yeah, I guess there was
that's a tribe on their own, theater kids, right? I mean, that's a
totally. It's a whole nother world and a whole other level of communication and friendships and yeah, just communication. And that was my second major, so I wasn't like in the theater school every day.
And which was your first major?
Advertising.
Advertising.
Yes. Which seemed to make sense too. Which I actually love. Again, copy. I love doing voiceover work. I love that whole communicating with the masses. Yes. So, but once I got into theater, and like Bruce Miller was a coach there, was one of the acting teachers there. I just loved it. I mean, it was like not doing homework. I mean, it wasn't homework. It was like,
right.
I was excited to go home and work on my monologue and work on, I think we had to act out a song or yes, we had to pick a song and actually like do some dramatic. I remember that one assignment. Yeah, and
what song? Do you remember what song you chose?
I do. It was Sade's Jezebel. It's a beautiful song. Yeah, check out Sade.
I will.
Yes.
All right. And so you spent 2 years at the school.
Yep, 2 years, and then the only musical that I did there was Into the Woods. I was one of the twins. I think it was Florinda. Yes, I was one of the sisters.
Nice.
And that was a lot of fun. We had some great actors at the school. Yeah. A couple that I ran into one on the train in New York one day. I was like, oh my gosh, is that Aisha? And yeah, and Valerie. Oh, there was a couple people that I ran into in New York.
And they're still working professionally as outstanding. Well, great to hear good news that is and the program is still strong. We have a lot of people that have come through Miami New Drama are graduates of the program. So this is all great to hear that it's been like that for years. So you graduated from UM.
Yes.
And then I have a degree in theater. How does life move forward from there?
Right. For me, I was just about to move to New York and go live with my aunt in Brooklyn.
Your singer aunt or another aunt?
No, another aunt. Actually a great aunt, and she was so cool. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that and pursue acting. And then I listened to other advice from family, and I said, because I had a job offer from the Recording Academy, which is the organization that does the Grammy Awards, the nonprofit, and they have an office in Florida. It was at the time their office, the physical office, was on Miami Beach, and I was hired to be the executive assistant there in the 2-person office. So I wound up taking that job because I heard that you could get benefits. That's what somebody. Well, Nikki, if you take that job, you could get benefits, and that it's so funny to hear that now because it was just such a different world, and that's what your parents think. They just want you to be secure. So I was like, well, it could be good because then I'll learn music and I'll meet music people in Miami. And so I did that, and I thought I'd do it for a shorter amount of time, but I wound up there for 3 years. But it all worked out because, odd story, one of my board members who worked at Jose Tian, do you know Jose Tian? He was the artistic director, or no, the artist relations or something. Yeah, I think so, at my MTV Latin America, where we would have our board meetings. And he had heard that I sang, and he was in the indie music world, like because in Miami Beach, I would go around and do open mics and play my guitar, and I was still writing songs and learning about the industry and trying to find my voice. So even though I was working in the daytime, I was still doing the open mic scene in Miami Beach, there was a big one in the late 90s, sorry. The great music scene in Miami Beach, Birdman, a couple great musicians that have it's DJ Spam. So I was doing that, and he heard that I sang, and I think he got a call from RCA Records. They had a band that was coming to West Palm Beach Sunfest to perform, and they were looking for a background vocalist. And I'm sure they probably said, "Oh, well, it's a blues rock band, so we're trying to find, a black voice, maybe a soulful voice that can be the background singer for this show." And so I think Jose, I don't think he ever heard me sing, but he said, "Oh, you know what? You should call Nicole Henry." And so they called me. I think I had a beeper or a phone at that time. I guess I had a cell phone. I don't even remember now. Yeah, I probably had a cell phone, 90, 98. No, this was 2000. I definitely had a cell phone. So they called and they were like, "Okay, when you get to West Palm Beach, we'll give you the CD and bring your Walkman." You remember the CD Walkmans that you used to have? And you can learn the music. So get there early. You can learn the music and then do the show. And just bring your tambourine. I was like, all right, cool. Or I don't even think I had a tambourine, but I got there. They gave me the tambourine because I was the chick singer in the background of this blues band, and I didn't realize what traffic was like going to West Palm Beach. Because I never went to West Palm Beach for anything. I got there like an hour before showtime.
Oh my God.
But I'm listening to these songs, and I'm listening, and I think they had lyric sheets for me. So I'm listening, because there was no Spotify or iTunes or all that stuff. You couldn't find them. So, and it was a new CD. So anyway, I'm listening backstage in their trailer, go on stage, and we do the show. And it was so much fun. And then they were like, "All right, we're going to call you because we're going to go on the road this summer." And I was like, yeah, sure. And like, "Yeah, we'll call you." So they called me. And to go on the road. This was May. They called me to go on the road in the middle of June. And what I did at that time, after 3 years at the office, and there's a long story behind that, but I never took any vacation days because I wound up going through like 3 executive directors there, which if you know anything about nonprofits, and if there's a 2-person office and you go
a little bit of nonprofits, I know.
Yeah, all right. So I went through 3 executive directors, and it was like, I'm holding I was kind of like the mainstay at the office at the time, so I never took any of my vacation days. So trying to make this short, so when they called me to go on the road for 6 weeks, I took a leave of absence. I told my boss, I said, "Listen, I'm going to take all my vacation days and my sick days that I've never used, and I'm going to take a leave of absence for 6 weeks and go on the road." And he was super supportive. He was like, "Go for it," because he knew that I always, wanted to sing, and he knew that I was working on a career. And I knew it from day one. We first landed in New Orleans, and we played the House of Blues there. And I was like, nice. I'm quitting my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as I got back, and then, that tour, we played Red Rocks in Colorado on July 4th, opening up for Dave Matthews. It was
wow. Was it a classical tour where everybody was in the bus? Was it a bus tour or
bus tour? Yep. I had my little bunker, my little thing that I would slide in at night. You're on the road, you sit in the front, you play cards, or people playing guitar. It was amazing. And that's when I realized I just love being on the road. I love waking up and saying, "Wait, where am I again? Oh, okay, right, okay." And then just be at the lobby at this time, and we're leaving at this time, and I'm like, give me an itinerary and a stage, and I'm delighted.
And so that tour was over. And then what?
Then I came back, and I gave my my notice. I said, and I think so. It was July. I left the office at the end of September, I believe it was. And they were so sweet. They threw me a big surprise going away party. And but I figured I'll figure out how it's going to go. I knew that we were going to go on back on the road here and there. I did like another 2-week tour and then another 4-week tour with them and a couple, one-offs and things like that. But then they never wound up making us another CD after that. Although it was a great band, just a great, called Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise. If you can check them out, the music is so good.
I'm sure that Claudia can find and share the link or their Spotify link for us here in the chat.
Oh man, I should have put some photos together. Yeah, that was a good time. Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise. They were out of Detroit, Michigan. Yeah, and the lead singer was a blind black man from different part of Michigan, and it was really, actually I think he might have been from Alabama, but then lived in Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah.
Nice. And so,
so yeah, so then when I came back, when I came back off the road, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? And
you're a changed person. By then, you're a changed person. You have already, seen what could be, and then you're back in Miami, back in your office, and no way.
Well, I knew, I was like, all right. No, I didn't go back to the office. Well, I came back but I gave my notice, and first day I was back, right. I gave my notice. So then I'm on Miami Beach. At the time I lived on Ocean Drive, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to make this happen? I almost moved to Detroit to go work on some music there, but then I wound up staying in Miami. So I knew I wanted to pursue both acting and singing. So I went back to acting classes around town in Miami, took some headshots, started going to commercial auditions. So I did a lot of commercial work in Miami. And I think I got so that was 2000. 2001 is when I got some agents in Miami. But then I also was singing around town, met a guitarist named Lou Duvin. He goes by Cleveland Jones. We started a duo project. So we were gigging regularly with that. I went to a couple booking agencies that have like different bands working around town, in nightclubs and so forth. And I was like, do you guys need a singer, a lead singer, or, vocalist? And he said, oh, well, put together a demo of your voice. And let me ask around and see if, do you know a lot of pop music? I was like, yeah. I was like, I know a lot of disco and 70s and 80s. I mean, I knew music from back in the day. So I knew a lot of 70s, 80s, that kind of stuff. So he might have given me, I made a little karaoke demo of my voice, like I think 45 seconds of like 6 different types of songs, so that I could give that to the agent so he could hear me. And he said, okay, well, I have these 2 bands. Why don't you go visit them on a gig and be prepared to sing, to sit in on 1 or 2 songs with them. I was like, okay, all right. So he put me in touch with those band leaders. They gave me a song or 2 to be ready with. And then I show up and I, sing a song, and then they call me for gigs. So that's how you make it. That's how you that's how you get work in Miami, at least.
But I mean, it's interesting because this is a great example of a learning strategy. You call people. Mm-hmm. You knew that there were booking agencies, and you went and you called the different bands because you knew that somebody might need somebody like you. So, I mean, I just want to really put an asterisk around here. Things don't just happen. You make it happen. The other gig sort of fell into your lap, right? But
that was
so that also happens, but that's rare. That's rare.
Yeah.
And also it happens because you were in a place where it could happen, right? I mean, you are, the more you work, the luckier you are, right? I mean, the more doors you open, the more things can happen.
Exactly. And the only way my board member knew that I was a singer was because I was, for the last 3 years of my life, showing up to open mics, recording little demos of my own songs, working with musicians around town that he knew, like Neil Lara and different artists in his band. And, but yeah, and actually I skipped a little part of that right after, at my last year of college, or last 2 years of college, I also recorded house music, dance music.
Oh, really?
Because I was working at a nightclub on Miami Beach, or doing the door, or like doing the cashier or something at the door at Groove Jet. And the DJ, I guess, you're working from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning, and I'm singing along to some of the songs, and one of the guys that I work with told the DJ, "Oh my gosh, you should hear Nicole sing. She could sing." So the DJ says to me, "Oh, I have a friend that's making music and he's looking for a vocalist to record some songs." I said, "Okay, well, yeah, call me. Have him call me." So I go record a couple songs with a guy named Noel Sanger, who's a friend of mine today. He's great. And he recorded, we recorded 2 songs together. And of course, in his shower, in the bathroom, the bathroom has good reverb. That's what I'm saying. We weren't in the shower. And let me tell you, in 1998, the second song that we recorded was like number 8 on the Billboard charts in the dance music, on a dance music.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. And that's when I was like, wait, this can happen to what?
From my bathroom, from my shower to the billboards.
To the Billboard chart. So Michelle, it was kind of like, oh, you can do it from Miami. Like you can become who you want to be wherever you are and make it happen. It wasn't like you have to go to New York. And it was just really, you just never know. You just keep doing stuff. You just keep working. You just keep putting yourself out there, keep trying new things, keep committing to doing what you love. Sometimes even if it's not a lot of money, and you gotta just get out there, especially at the beginning.
So you're gigging, you're going to the nightclub scenes and the open mic, the music scene in Miami, and then what? How did you get to that next step?
So for me, it was me, my guitar duo, and Lou and I were asked to open up the club Jazzed. It used to be on Washington and 13th, and they would have live jazz Sunday, Monday, Tuesday nights. So they asked Lou and I to have like the love hour, which was an hour and a half, but to do the love hour just prior to get people into the seats, just prior to the 9 o'clock start with jazz, so that we'd start at 7 and then go to 8:30. And so from there, after we did our part of the gig, I would stick around, have a few drinks, and listen to jazz. Again, kind of like Broadway, a genre that I never heard growing up. I mean, I remember seeing Ella Fitzgerald on like one of the great, music award shows, and hearing her do some stuff. And I remember hearing, Bill Cosby show, him singing jazz sometimes on the but I never really, I've heard of, I watched Lady Sings the Blues with Billie Holiday or Diana Ross. So I heard these names, but I just never really consciously knew what jazz was. And yes, jazz, someone mentioned jazz, and yes, Ikaterina. So in fact, when in 1998, I had told, a couple friends, I'm getting into music. And I said, oh, you should listen to jazz. And I said, okay, well, like, who should I listen to? And someone gave me a Nina Simone album, and someone gave me a later Nina Simone album, and then someone gave me Billie Holiday's Lady in Satin, which was her last album. And if you know the life of Billie Holiday, it was her last album. Her voice was shot,
right,
and she sounded really troubled. And I remember listening to the album and saying, in my mind, I'm thinking Whitney Houston singing. And I listened to this Billie Holiday album. I could not understand I couldn't understand. I was like, this lady sounds like she's a mess. Poor thing. And it wasn't until I saw jazz, for me, seeing it live and feeling it live, I went back to that album and it all made sense. I was like, oh, okay, jazz is a whole other language that I never would have understood if I hadn't seen it live. I was able to hear Fly Me to the Moon and Night and Day, and hear these names, Cole Porter, and hear Frank Sinatra, and hear, Sarah Vaughan. I was like, oh. And then I was able to totally fall in love with jazz. It was like I had been looking for jazz but didn't know what it was. And I think what I loved about finding jazz for me at that time, because this was like 2002, and I had done the original music scene, been in a band, which I loved our music, but it takes so much work to be in an original music band to make $25 for a gig. You know, you're getting
Right,
paid
right,
for
right,
the whole
right.
band. Okay, thanks guys for your set, of which, you know, 45 minutes of music is like a lot of work, and you're rehearsing twice a week. And then you go to do the show and the whole band makes, you know, $150. And then it's
Right.
like, what am I supposed to do with this? So, you know, you start doing covers, and at least if you're working locally and that's your sustenance, you're singing and acting full time. Not, I haven't had a real job.
Right, right.
Right? As my parents probably think.
With benefits.
Right, right, right. Right. Actually, SAG. I had benefits with SAG
Right.
because I became a union actress. But I forget what I'm saying. So yeah, that so when in by 2002, I was like, okay, well, what am I gonna do? What music? You know, because when you go to sing pop, very often, at least at that time, I would go to gigs and I'd be singing pop, but I'd be singing it like my way, and I'd be trying to improvise and do stuff, and they're like, can you sing it like the album? And I was like, oh, okay. So then when I heard jazz, I was able to sing it my way
Right.
and create a sound for Nicole, and there it was like freedom, and I could sing more than one ballad per set. It was like, because you can't do that at nightclubs. No one wants to hear
Right, right,
ballads.
right.
So jazz really found me at the right time, and it was
It's so interesting what you said that before when you were doing backup, you had to sound like the album. And then suddenly you were given the opportunity to sound like whatever you want your voice.
yeah.
You can be you can define your own voice and and that must have been so empowering.
It really was. And I tell you, I was really fortunate because I had a great band that followed me, and let me do what I wanted to do while still teaching me, you know, what the right parts of the songs were. But and my band was amazing. Such great players, such great men. So that, yeah, and that's what becoming an artist is about, is finding your own voice and trying to hear, you know, I would listen to a songs a few times to learn it, but then I would like try to intentionally not listen to it anymore so that I wouldn't have their voice in my mind as I was learning and, you know, studying songs. So that's why I always tell singers, even if you're singing cover songs, you have to get that other person's voice out of your head,
Out of your head, right?
because you have to sound like you're talking to yourself, like you're singing to yourself, and you have to hear your own voice. And that's why I do have a good time doing that.
It's funny when I'm working with actors, I always have to remind them that whatever they're saying is something that they just thought of, right? And because a lot of time with less professional, you kind of, I don't believe that you're saying that because you just thought of, but because you are in a play and you have to. So that's, I guess, how you can tell a good actor is that it sounds like they just, that thought just crossed their mind. And in a way, the same thing about a great performer, that when it's their voice, they're sounding like, this is what I have to say. This is how I feel in this exact moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. And if you think about it, like even like Michelle, if I say your name, if I say your name the second time in the midst of two or three or four or five sentences, Michelle, I'm not going to say it the first time the same way I
Right.
say it the second time. And when I'm coaching singers, I tell them that same thing. I say, when you sing that chorus the second time, I want it to sound like the first time, but like if it's the same melody, but I also want you to have a different intention. Why are you repeating these words to me? And it's true. It's like every time I sing a song, I create different stories in my mind for that day of how I feel, because otherwise it's just going to sound like I am singing a lyric that I know are the lyrics to this song. You know what I mean? It's like, otherwise it's like I'm singing a song to, or I'm singing lyrics to a song that I know these, you have to have fun with, like you said, the nowness of the presentation. And yeah, so I think acting has definitely informed my singing practices, because that is something you learn. Like you said, it's like, first of all, they have to be your words, not the words
Right.
that the poet or the author gave you or the playwright gave you. And they have to be things that you just thought of, like just now. Yeah. That is,
It's so beautiful what you said about, when because songs are repetitive, right? Songs go to chorus, etc. So why am I repeating this again? Why, how am I going to tell you this differently than what I told you before? Right. And so it talks about song progression, which also a lot of, especially in musical theater, songs are written with a very clear progression, right? Like we
Mm,
start somewhere and we end up somewhere differently, and there's a journey, right?
right.
Which sometimes pop songs don't have in a way that forward movement. But
Not
if you
always.
if you put the forward movement thought on into whatever material you're singing, it will only sound better because you'll make us feel like we've gone somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you do because yeah. First chorus, second chorus always has a little change, you know.
Right,
And then the
right.
third chorus, yeah, you're going for it. Yeah.
You're going for it. That's right. Nice. And so, okay, so you're starting to come of age musically. You found your own voice. You're starting to find an audience that really resonates with with the work you're doing.
Hmm.
And then how does that expand to the way, your career expanded?
And Michelle, I tell you, it's been nothing but a blessing for me. And I think, you know, that there's a quote, creativity begets creativity. And it's true because if you don't start doing something, like, and another quote is like, you never fail if you only fail if you didn't start or something like that.
That's right.
Um, so I'm singing at Jazzid now because the jazz band had heard me sing with my duo, and they said, "Oh, why don't you learn jazz if you love it, and we'll give you a night. You'll do a night here with us." And I was like, "Are you absolutely?" So this was January or February, and then April 22nd, 2002 was my first gig with the jazz band, and it was so fun. It was so fun. So about a year goes by. I'm singing probably every week with this band at Jazzid, and then I start singing at upstairs at the Van Dyke. No, maybe that was a couple years later. The guy didn't want to book me at first,
Ah,
she's not a real jazz singer. I was like, oh, whatever. But eventually he believed that I was a real jazz singer, and but in 2003, so about a year later, we'd have audience members. I'd have audience members come up to me, and a lot of times they're tourists on Miami Beach, but also we had repeat customers, and they would say, "Oh, do you have a CD that I can buy?" And I was like, "Oh, I hadn't even thought about
hmm,
making a CD of, yeah, okay." So then after people asking me for months, I March 17th, I think it was on my birthday of 2003, we recorded an album, like live. The band just went to the Van Dyke actually finally, and we recorded
hmm.
in the daytime. And then I had an EP, or no, I had a CD of 9 songs that I was selling, literally dubbing them in my house, photocopying, getting copies of, so I think from my same printer that I use today, cutting them at home, putting them into the jewel cases, and having like 20 for the week, or having 20 for the night. And then I sold probably about 500 or 1,000 CDs
Wow.
that way.
Wow.
And then I was like, wow, if I can sell 1,000 CDs, maybe I can get a record deal. And I tried to get people who I knew, maybe knew somebody in Blue Note Records or different and I wasn't able to get anywhere with it. So a friend, Sammy Figueroa, who's a
But
percussion.
hold on. I just want to put an asterisk here for a second. I want everybody to understand that Nicole recorded her own album, photocopied the cover, cut the cover herself. I mean, people are like that's what a start like it. Everybody copy that. She she did it herself
Okay.
because nobody is gonna do it. If she doesn't believe in herself, then who is gonna believe in her? So like that's how superheroes are born. That's how stars are born. You believe in yourself and you do the work and you cut your own scissors. You go and you photocopy it at home and you create your own album. Amazing. Sorry, continue.
No, thank you for it's wild. I mean, back in the day you get the color copy and you have the CD labels and then you'd put the CD on top and you'd push this. It was such a funny, it's what it was. It's what I did, what I had to do. I mean, I was living in a studio on Ocean Drive and I didn't. I don't know.
Also, as we're talking, I can't help but feel this nostalgia for a Miami Beach that
Oh,
kind of doesn't exist anymore, with
no.
Van Dyke and all those jazz places. And as an institution, Miami Drama, we kind of have a responsibility, to bring culture back to the core of
Yeah.
what Miami Beach used to be. But we are, you know, culture has grown in a different ways. New World
Hmm.
and City Ballet and Miami Drama, and there's Miami Beach still has, but we've lost the culture that exists in Metropolis. That culture of jazz cafes and the music scene uh, and we have to, as a community, return to it. Maybe now there's so many vacancies around the city, and I think the retail obviously is not gonna be what
Yeah.
it was 10 years ago. People are not gonna stop using Amazon, etc. So hopefully that crisis allow for a wave of places like that to come back.
I really hope so. I really hope so. Like you said, more live music venues. A lot of times it boils down to rent prices,
Right, that's
landlord.
what I mean. But that's why I think that there's going to
Music.
be a reckoning, because prices are extremely high, and retail, flagship stores for sure. The Apple, they can afford that, but you have too many retail places, and people are not using retail anymore. So those spaces need to be
Yeah.
transformed into something that people want, like live music, like live music houses.
Yeah, no, it was back in the day. I mean, I was here, I was on the beach in the mid 90s. I remember Washington Square. In fact, I did a background vocal gig when I was in college there. It was a great music venue, the same one that's in the Hamptons, Washington Square. Um, Roses was on the corner of 7th or 8th in Washington. There were like probably 4 or 5. The Marlin Hotel had open mic nights, and Friday and the weekends they had live music. So I do think, everything goes in waves, and I really pray. I mean, I love that you all, Miami New Drama, I mean, and the name says it all, you all encourage and foster work with new, or playwrights with new works. That's just so formidable. I really love you all for that. I appreciate you all for that. And they're great. Obviously, you're finding great stories, great text. So,
Our community is a unique community. As you know, we're the most, one of the most diverse cities in the country. We are an immigrant town. There's a lot of great stories,
mhm.
um, and we are extremely lucky to be collaborating with you in the biggest and most epic story we've ever told. So I can't wait for us to return to the Colony Theater. As you know, I mean, if you go to the Colony now, you open the doors and you'll see the set
Oh,
as you left it. I took, by the way, Donna Shalala, who unfortunately did not win re-election, but I took her a
that's
few
her.
weeks ago to a tour of the Colony Theater, and we went into your dressing room, and everything was there as you left it.
I love.
It's funny. Everything, like, even like, I mean, we don't have, people don't smoke in the dress, but it would have been the type of place where you would have find a half smoked like, it was
Yeah.
just as people left it.
Yeah.
Just every We all assumed we were going to come back to that dressing room, and,
Two
and
weeks
we didn't.
later. Yeah, 3 weeks
Right.
later. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, anyways,
Yeah.
we've diverged a little. Let's go back into, you're now looking to find somebody to publish your album,
Hmm.
right? So how did you finally manage that?
Right. No record label wanted to take it. And so I said, okay, well, I guess. So then I talked to a woman named Rachel Faro, who had been producing music for about a decade or two. And she said, well, why don't you just start, then you should just start your own label, and I can help you get a distribution deal. It's like, okay. So basically, it's a great company out of Oregon, they were. And they gave me a distribution deal. So I started a record label.
Hmm.
And I remember saying, okay, well, what am I going to call my record label? And I slept on it for a couple of days. And then one day I just woke up, and it was because I had told myself that I wanted to have a label that presents music that's elevating for people. So my company, my record label is called Bannister Records. So it's hopefully always going up and giving more and elevating people
So
through
you
music
started your own record company.
out of necessity. Yeah.
But that's, I mean, I love this story so much. I hate people that complain that nobody gave me a chance, blah, 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 blah. You can that doesn't exist. You give yourself your, and even, you know, in the professional world, nobody says, oh, my agent found. No, you have to,
Mhm.
the reality of it is that you have to find the opportunities yourself. You have to open those doors
Yeah.
yourself. There is not a magic button somewhere that, you know, that might happen from time to time, but people who make it on their, you know, they find their own opportunities. I mean,
Yeah.
I am so in love with your story, and that
Thank you.
I won't interrupt anymore. Continue.
No, no,
But
no. I mean, I appreciate you helping me realize that it was like not some, I guess it's not something that people do every day, but what was amazing to me, and I'll kind of talk about how fortunate I was to, you know, in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to sing pop. And I loved Whitney Houston. And I was trying to figure out how to come up with that. But so in discovering jazz and falling in love with jazz, I come to find out that jazz is the most affordable genre to actually promote your own music through, because your ad buys don't cost as much, you know, getting it into music stores don't cost as much, your radio promoter doesn't cost as much, your PR person doesn't cost as much. You can find different resources at different levels of, I mean, trust me, there are PR companies that'll charge you $3,500 a month to promote your album, even if you're a jazz label. But coming in at the level that I did as a newbie, I mean, and again, a gentleman who sat on my board at MTV, Tom Hunter, introduced me to his friend who was a jazz radio promoter who did like Diana Krall and Jane Monheit, and all these Peter Sincotti. So I sent her my album, and she was like, "I'd be happy to rep this album for you." And I was like, okay. So,
wow.
so she promoted it to all the jazz radio stations throughout the country. It was really well received. I think it made it to like number 34 on the, you know, a chart of 50 on
Wow.
the jazz
Yes.
radio, or maybe even higher.
An album that your own label, your own, you created your own label, and that album got to top 35 in the Billboard of Jazz. Wow.
And how does Tom Hunter in Miami know Jane
Right.
Dashow in New York, who's the top radio jazz promoter? And Rachel finds me a distribution deal in Oregon. And, you know, with that distribution deal, you know, I could go into Virgin Megastore and I bought a listening station in the jazz department because it's much cheaper than pop. And I was able to pay for a listening station for like a month or two in New York City in Times Square.
Ha.
And they liked my album so much that they kept it there for like a year and a half. I can
Wow.
say this now because no one's going to get in trouble because they don't exist anymore. But but they left, and it was one of their best sellers. Like that New York
That's
Times
amazing.
Square store. And I actually went and did a what do you call it, in-store music performance. I flew my band
Oh,
up because
nice.
fortunately I was working like 5 and 6 nights a week. So, and doing like weddings and, you know, and then I was also doing commercials. So, and I got my first SAG commercial, I think. And so I was able to save money and reinvest that money into my career. And so I flew my band up. We did it in store in New York City, where like a bomb scare happened. So in the middle of our in store, everybody had to evacuate the whole building.
Oh no.
It was really wild. It was definitely a memorable
So
experience.
this is after that's probably after 9/11. I remember those few years because I was in and around New York, and they were
Super sensitive. Yeah.
very super. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been a fun journey. And then since then, you know, that album, a gentleman found that album on CD Baby, and he said, "Oh, can I distribute it in Japan?" I was like, "Yeah." So I was like, "All right, send me the money and I'll send you a box of CDs." So like 150 CDs at a time. Fortunately, I lived at 12th and Ocean, and the post office was right around the corner. So, and by then I wasn't, you know, just making the CDs in my house. So I was actually getting them printed by disc makers. So I would ship boxes of CDs over to Japan, and eventually he calls me a few months later and he's like, "Your CD is number 6 on the vocal jazz charts." And I'm like, Oh, he's like,
in
let's buy some
Japan.
ads. Let's buy some or let's buy some ads and make posters. And so we split the cost for the posters and in all the stores in HMV Japan. And that CD got to number 2 on the charts, I think, or number 1 on the charts, but got me named Best New Jazz Artist in Japan. So it was just like, and then a piano player in Miami named Eddie Higgins had a Japanese promoter because he was going there a lot. So I met him at Van Dyke, and he said, well, I'll introduce you to my booking agent there. And I went on tour with him the first time, and I've since been back to Japan 17 times. So it's just, you just honestly, what's meant for you is meant for you, but you have to work. You have to be diligent and keep doing it.
But that's, I think that's a great lesson for everybody. And especially if we have young people here or parents of young people, you have to do it on your own. You have to believe in yourself, invest in yourself. You've been telling me, I mean, you've been investing whatever you're earning by singing in weddings. You reinvest in your career. You have to take your career seriously as a business.
You do.
And I think it's a great lesson. It's a great lesson of opening. You know, you did it your way. You did it your way. And there are no two roads alike in this industry. But at least listening to your story, makes people understand that there are more roads that you thought existed.
Absolutely. And there's so many. If you go to any agencies, like music agencies that represent musicians and bands, you go to any of the, and you're going to see hundreds of artists that you've never heard of that are full-time. Sometimes some of them are they're full-time artists, And so I always, when I talk to kids, I'd say, there are some doctors in Broward County that are like the best doctors in Broward, but you'll never know who they are. But they might be making $500,000 a year, but you don't know. Or they might be making $150,000 a year, but they're successful and they're doing what they love. And I tell them it's just like that with artists and actors. They're doing what they love, but you may never know their name. Right. People say, "Oh, well, do you feel like you're a star?" I'm like, "No, I don't think." I walk down the street like everybody else, and many people don't know, my name, but I feel like I'm doing a good job with my career, and I'm having a great time, and I'm doing what I love. So, yeah, I would. The joke is, how do you become a millionaire in the jazz world? You start with 2 million, and then you can become a 1 millionaire. Yeah,
I think we have the same saying in theater. We both chose professions that are not known for making people wealthy.
Right. But I love what I do, and I love my audiences, and I love that, you get these special emails from people from time to time, and you realize you don't know who you're affecting and whose life you're changing or even saving sometimes. So yeah, it's pretty.
And you're extremely generous to this community. You give a lot back. You serve on boards. You do fundraisers all the time. What drives your, honestly, what drives your generosity? Why the need and the responsibility that you feel?
Thank you. Well, I like I said, I come from the city of brotherly love, and I have always been raised that there's always people that are less fortunate than you, and it's our responsibility to take care of them, and not take care of them like handout, but to give them opportunities and try to, what I want for myself, I want for everybody else that I ever meet, and or even people that I don't meet. And so, and I believe that change happens on a local level. So I do believe that we should find ways to help our brothers and sisters that don't always have what you had, you know what I mean? What I have. So I try to find opportunities to whether it's be a voice for them, or to raise money for them, or to remind people that these situations and lifestyles exist, and we have to try to find ways to help them change it. Not always handouts, I think we have to think about solutions, and but also, and so, yeah, I sit on a board of a nonprofit called Miami Music Project, and they are definitely transforming lives. You know,
Absolutely,
we're helping
absolutely.
them get into art. We're giving free music lessons to a lot of the underserved schools. We have 138 schools that then get bused after school to these 5 chapters. Not right now, obviously. We're doing everything virtually, but and we teach them music, how to play music, and right, it's through orchestra lessons, orchestra instruments, and through that, you know, they learn discipline, they learn partnership, they learn collaboration skills, they learn how to express themselves, how to work in groups. They're obviously, we all know that arts, particularly music, but arts education help students in every facet of their education. So math, you know, they just listen better, they behave better, they're inspired. And so we've changed, you know, about 30, we've reached about 30,000 kids over the 11 years that this organization has been around. So I'm delighted to highlight their work and help get money to them. Yeah.
And Claudia just shared now on the chat their website, and I urge you to visit that website of miamimusicproject.org and donate if you can. Nonprofits at this moment in time are in need.
Yeah.
So if you could check the wonderful work that they do, and if your
Thank you.
generosity allows, please donate.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Appreciate it.
we've covered quite a bit of your career, but I want to pivot a little bit to talk just for a while about how do you train your craft? Like, how do you wake up every day, or how do you work on your voice and improving your craft?
It's interesting because I never really took singing lessons until around 2011 was my I took some vocal, like some warm up lessons actually in maybe 2004. But they helped a lot, but it didn't really settle in until I started studying on a regular basis with vocal coaches. And sometimes it's like a minister. You have to find the right minister that's going to
You have
give
to
you
find
so
the
that the
right.
message that you need to hear and how you need to hear it. And that's why there's a ton of ministers. There's a ton of vocal coaches, and and again, it's like yoga. Even like you might do yoga, and then 5 years later, you're like, ah, I get it. Like, oh, this
Mm.
stretch, now I see what I was supposed to be doing in this, you know. So that's what vocal lessons have been like for me. And committing to them for the last, I'd say, 6 years of my life has made a difference for me vocally. It's crazy to think that I waited so long to actually get into the singing lessons. And sometimes I listen to my first recordings and I'm like, okay, all right. Thank you for buying, you know. So and so I still have a vocal coach who I'll probably see next week, about every 3 weeks or so, just to work on approaching new songs. A good warm up for me, which I'll be doing this afternoon, is about 20 minutes, and I have different ways of going about getting into it, and I try to mix them up a little bit just so that I feel like I'm successfully getting all parts of the voice, you know. And it's funny, someone said, oh, can you teach vocal lessons? And because I don't play really piano, and I didn't actually go to school, I feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't give vocal lessons, but I give coaching lessons. I give like interpretation lessons, and I talk to people about putting shows together and that kind of thing, because there is a whole other craft of performing, you know, not just singing. But for me, like, I have a big show that I'm going to be, well, actually in 2 weeks I'll be recording towards I have a Nancy Wilson project that I'm doing to honor that phenomenal legend, jazz legend. So for the next 2 weeks, starting just a couple days ago, I'm warming up every day, and I'm trying to sing at least every other day for about an hour and a half. And all kinds of songs, but then of course those songs. And then shortly after that, I'm recording my colony show, my colony concert, which we're going to record with the band outside this time, of course, because the Colony Theater has a wonderful world staging on it. So we're not going to be there this year, but we're going to still film out of Miami and do my Christmas concert. Or holiday concert, like winter concert, I call it. And for that, again, because if you're not singing, I think Tony Bennett has a quote, but it's like, if you don't practice for 2 weeks, your audience knows it. Or wait, what is it?
Yeah, I think it's.
I forget what it is. Yeah.
If you don't practice for one day, you notice. If you don't practice for 2 days or 2 weeks, your audience notices. And if you don't practice for 3 days or 3 weeks, no, the 2 days the critic notices, and 3 weeks your audience notices. Something that we just butchered some wise words.
Exactly,
so
right.
We apologize.
You gotta, yeah, exactly. Somebody said something smart a long time ago about practicing, and it's true. I do that. I mean, again, I do the best, and my voice is the best when I'm gigging 3 times a week. I don't do as much as I used to with the 5 times a week, unless I'm doing a stretch, at one venue. Right. But yeah, it's a physical thing, playing, acting. It's a physical thing. So
absolutely. And before we're going to open up to Q&As very soon, by the way, I would rather if you guys could. Okay, I see a few questions already in the Q&A section, so that's great. That's where the question should be, the Q&A section, not in the chat, so we can go one by one and answering those questions. All right, but how do you take care of your body? I mean, we spoke about a bit about your voice, but how do you, your body is your instrument, and it's not just your vocal cords, it's the whole deal. How do you? Really, I heard a yoga reference. Do you do yoga?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find cardio to really be something that is good for my body and my voice, so that my breath is really moving through my body. So stretching is just amazing. Even if you just do 3 sun salutations every morning, that just gets your whole body moving, because it's such a physical act. And same as acting, any acting coach will, in classes, you're doing body warm-ups. Voiceover coaches, you're doing warm-ups for P's and T's and T's and M's, and so it's a muscle, all of it. Personally, I just enjoy sports, thank God, because my sister hates it. She's like, I really have to work out, but if I don't work out, I gain weight, and I've seen it. I gain weight quickly. So I just love outdoor sports. I love athleticism. So I work out probably 4 times a week. Yeah. And plus I don't know if I'm cheap or I'm lazy. I don't love shopping, so I can fit in my clothes all same clothes I had from 10 years ago. I'm like, oh good, I can fill that dress out.
Do you go to a gym? Do you run outside?
I run outside. Oh, it was so painful for like a year. I hurt my leg. I hurt my knee because I wasn't training properly for a marathon. And I hurt my knee about a year ago. So
a full marathon? You do full marathon?
No, I will never do a full marathon. I did a half marathon though, but it sounds good, right? I was training for a marathon.
I think that's just insane. A half marathon I can sort of get. But a full marathon, you have to hate yourself to like 4 hours. That destroys you. I agree. It's crazy.
I agree. No, and my body was like, no, we're not doing that. So, but I'm finally back into running. I just ran yesterday about 5 miles, so that's exciting. I mean, I love everything. Right now, I'm not going to my gym. I was doing a treadmill there, but I'm not really excited about that right now. I do have a friend, George Whitehead, who I knew from back when I worked at the Delano when they first opened, 1995 on the beach. He's a trainer, and he's getting me back into focused shape too. So we're doing some one-on-one training. So yeah, just anything. I have a Nike training app. It's like this app that you can. It's hundreds of workouts, and it's like, I think I bought it for $5.99 years ago, and I have all these options for workouts that they update all the time. So I do that maybe 30 minutes a day, and I'm in the house sweating. So yeah, I love working out, and I, of course, like so many people during COVID, I bought a bicycle, so I'm like out there doing that.
An outdoor bicycle. It's not a Peloton.
Not a Peloton, right.
That's how I started the pandemic, riding my bike, and I couldn't wait to get, like, this is what excited me the most. Like, when can I do my bike? And then I was going over a bridge, and I think I heard like a car. I don't know exactly what happened, but the next thing I know, I was on the floor, and I broke my knee.
No.
I broke my wrist. Yes, at the beginning of the pandemic. And I spent 8 weeks with the first 2 weeks where I was in my bed. I couldn't move. I had a cast like from all the way up to my leg to
Oh
yeah.
no, where were
And I
you?
and I and I did all the mastermind. I was here in Miami, and
Oh,
this happened like 3 blocks from my house. I
oh,
had to call my wife. I was like, pick me up, and she's like, "You're always exaggerating. I'm sure you're
oh
okay. Nothing." And
no,
yeah, and then that was the one where I couldn't even go to the hospital. People were really afraid of
oh
the whole thing was. But anyways, and I kept doing all my mastermind classes. I think I
no.
complained about it a few times, but
Michelle, I had no idea.
yeah,
What a,
yeah.
oh no. Did the
And
person that hit you stop?
no, I don't think anyone hit me. I think that I just fell down. No one hit me. I just fell down. I just heard something. I like turned around. Listen. I'm the clumsiest person in the world. It was irresponsible of me, knowing my own, my own clumsiness. I should
Think-
never be riding a bike. But
Oh,
anyways,
I'm sorry. That's right.
now I walk, which apparently is not that dangerous. And
Which
uh,
everybody's doing it. It's a good call.
I,
I heard it's
So
yeah.
okay, so we're starting with a Q&A section. So our Miami New
Oh,
Drama's good friend Barbara Martinez says, "I'm sorry we missed you in a wonderful world performance. We follow you since we arrived in Miami in 2004 and
oh,
saw you at the Sunny Isles Jazz.
yes.
Continued success and congrats on supporting our local young musicians. Hope to see you perform again soon."
Thank you, Barbara. Well, how
Barbara, that's very
cool.
nice.
2004. Wow.
All right, so we have the great Jason Williams, the star of A Wonderful World, Mr. Louis Armstrong himself, in the midst of
Yes.
fundraising for my choirs, JW's inspirational singer for New
Great.
Year, New Healing concert. I
Uh-huh.
need tips on how to get to
I love
$10,000
it. I love it. I love it.
to
You,
heal the
you know
world.
what I would do is I would do a marathon, like a 2 hour marathon of different singers in your choir, including you, and let people know that you're raising money and give people the link. And then as you're doing your Facebook Live concert, ask people to chip in 25, I know I did that back in May for Miami Music Project, and we raised a good nice amount of money. So think maybe do that. Jusan. Yes.
Our good friend Charlotte Lebov
Love
says,
Charlotte.
let me know when this will be achieved. Michelle, it's a wonderful
Oh,
program, and I want. What do you think?
I think she means maybe archived, like does she mean
Sorry.
Wonderful World?
Sorry. I my
That
my
happened
bad
with the bike
reading.
accident. I know you're
That
you're
clumsy.
you're
Let me know. This will be archived. Archive. That's what she said.
okay.
Not archive. Michelle, it's a wonderful. So immediately, like the next day, it's already on our YouTube channel. I wonder now how many questions I've read.
No, no, you had it right. You had it right.
What course? So
Aiden.
Aiden
Awesome.
says, what course of action would you recommend for a solo performer getting into the gig scene? Was it sort of a transition from the open mic scene for you?
Mm-hmm. So
Good
I would
question.
recommend, sitting in on people's performances if they allow you to, go in and sing a song here and there, and then find a band. Find a band that you would like to work with. There's always pianists, bass players, drummers, or piano, bass, drums, or even guitar, bass, drums. And try to find a trio that you can put together as your band and agree to either if they want to work on music together because you guys want to write stuff together, or then if you have, for example, and I know Aiden, he said he was loving Broadway and jazz because he and I had communicated before. I would pick your list of tunes, get charts, and that getting charts, I can talk about that. You can get charts online, like fake book charts. Nowadays, you can buy charts at musicnotes.com and download charts. And then I actually have a couple copyists, they call them, that will take a 5-page chart and make it a 2-page chart for you. So you can reach out to me if at info@NicoleHenry.com. You get people to make charts in your key. And then you just start with the basic charts. And eventually you then work as a band to create your own special arrangements. But right now, I think one of the most important things for young artists, if you know that you want to do this for the long haul, is to get, they say put those 10,000 hours in of performance that makes you a professional or an expert kind of. start plugging away at those performance hours and try to get the gigs, whether it's tough right now because, no hotel lobbies are open, no restaurants are hiring
Right.
bands. Um, but I think gigging around town is the best way to go. And again, in order to do that, it might be that you have to set up your phone and make a video. You make some videos of you all doing songs in a studio or in somebody's apartment, so they can hear what you sound like. There's so many things that you can get with a USB mic and different things. You can actually plug the mics into your cell phone, but of course you can get a good room sound, good enough to put on YouTube. And so at least you have to have a product of some sort. And these things cost money, but hopefully if you want to, one of the tough things about being a lead singer is I didn't necessarily have one band. It's like you do have to
Right.
call on people, especially when you're doing covers. It's like that. You usually can book who's available that night, in advance, obviously. So that's what I would suggest.
I mean, you said it costs money, but it doesn't cost as much money as it did 20 years ago. I
Yeah.
think that the technology has made, anybody really be able to record an album. The mics are not as expensive as they used to be. People can,
Hmm.
there's a friend who knows how to use computer well that can help you, uh,
Exactly.
you know,
Audacity,
use
all different. Yeah.
so, we have a similar question from, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Chevelle
Okay.
Wilsons. Thanks for sharing your journey, Nicole. It's fascinating. I'm in my late 40s and have a family, but I would love to explore singing as a hobby, not necessarily a career. Have also dreamed of recording for years, but not sure how to pursue this. What advice would you offer to take step towards performing, such as coaching, local theater, etc.?
Okay. And maybe well, I know I can talk about music a little bit. I don't know if you belong to a church or if you like church choirs. But I would say that's a great place to start. Choirs are a great place to start because you're going to meet other musicians, and every choir at a church has a band, and every band member that's playing at a church knows tons of musicians in your hometown, wherever you are. So every musician that you see at a gig, you walk up to them and say, "Hey, I'm a singer. I'm looking to do this," and they might have ideas for you. Or again, joining a church choir is always a good start. Thinking that's where you can get your resources. And then I would definitely take singing lessons. There's some great people here: Wendy Peterson, Beth Cohen. There's Chris somebody. Again, if you email me, I can give you about three people that she's down south in South Miami. Beth is in Fort Lauderdale. Wendy's down at FIU and in Miami. So there's some great coaches. There's a website called jazzvoice.com, and I'm one of the featured teachers. But there's a whole slew
Hmm,
of jazz vocal coaches that you can look at their resume and see if you want to train with them. So I would go to jazzvoice.com.
what a great idea.
Yeah, my friend
Definitely.
Alexis Cole came up with that during COVID, and it's brilliant. It's been a really great resource for students and for the teachers. Um, so that's what I would recommend. And as far as acting and coaches, Michelle, maybe you know some good acting schools. I know Ralph Kennard had a Miami Actors
Yeah,
Studio, I think it was
Ralph
called.
Kinner, by
Kennard.
the way, yes, or maybe he pronounces his. Also,
I don't
I
know.
met him decades ago in Venezuela when he had a school there.
Oh,
Yes, and is married with also to a Venezuelan lady, friend of mine. Yes, I know that they have short programs. I think that definitely there could be more training in Miami. We are hopefully expanding dramatically our education uh, resources and starting adult education.
oh, that would
Um,
be great. Oh, that's great.
but yeah, definitely, I think that there's space in Miami for more, uh, acting,
Coaching.
acting places. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
Um,
Mark Durso is in Fort Lauderdale. I think it's called Act One or Miami Act One. But Mark Durso, check out
right, and
him.
because a lot of them are focused on commercial work, etc. I think that I mean, the world we know more is the theater world, and that definitely that we could all benefit from having more
Mm.
uh, more opportunities.
Yeah.
So Jason William is now asking, why haven't I been invited to this mastermind classes yet? Because, my friend, we're saving you for a
There,
really special. You know,
that's
I
right.
wanted to do something really special with you, a cabaret that we're probably going to be doing near the holidays. A very special, just Son William hour, uh,
Love it.
and and
Son.
you know, do something special with him. So Judy Singer is
Hey,
asking, I'm so lucky to have seen you perform a few times at the Arts Garage in Delray Beach, plus
love that
the
space.
new Smyrna Beach
Hmm.
Jazz Festival. You are phenomenal. Now I'm a raving fan. Thanks for the joy.
That's awesome. Thank you, Judy, and thanks
Very
for your
nice.
communication. Yeah, that's a great venue in art in Delray Beach Arts Garage. Yes, support them
So
too.
Carla Ramirez says, did you ever question whether or not to keep going with music at some point of your music career path? How did you get past it? What a wonderful, I mean, I think every artist, you know, has those doubts at least 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah.
So how, you know, tell us about overcoming that.
Yeah, that's such a good question, Carla. Thank you. You know what? I don't think I've ever said I maybe I should stop this. I never have.
Mm,
And I think because my mother's child, my mother just didn't accept excuses because there's no excuse if you do what you want to do. There's no, you know, you just she just didn't accept excuses, and so I don't think I have that quitter's mentality in me. Like, yeah, you might make a change. Like, I mean, unfortunately, it cost me a year in college. I didn't want to quit architecture, but I went for it. But then you learn that maybe this isn't for you, or if you're not finding success, then maybe you do need to question, you know. But if you believe in yourself and you know you love what you do, obviously you have to make the right decisions for yourself financially, and if you have a family and all those things. But maybe make a list of things like what's going for me, what's not going for me. And if what's not going for you is clear, you know, if you can be objective about it and say, maybe I'm not, maybe it's not my time, or maybe I'm not in the right place. I mean, it's, you know, some artists move around from town to town, and when they do that, that means that their fan base is just bigger. They can go to Nashville and have a gig. They can go to Denver and have a gig. They can go to LA and have a gig and have a band. So sometimes people just have to move around, you know, to get the appreciation that they need. You know, maybe Miami's not the town for your style of music, or South Florida. Maybe you need to go to Nashville. Maybe you need to go to New York. Maybe you need to go to DC. Um, so it just all depends. But no, fortunately, I've never. There are days when I'm like, why do I make the same mistakes? You know, that kind of thing, or why didn't I do this 2 years ago? You know, but no, thank God, I've never doubted my path. Yeah.
well, I mean, I envy your certainty. Certainly a lot of theater artists I know, you know, there's always a doubt whether you're doing what you should be
Mm.
doing. But then I guess when you're performing, you're doing your thing, then it's like, oh, this is why,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I think sometimes I think we have to be realistic about who we are, and that's not an easy thing to do, or to be
Right,
when you're yourself. You know, to say, where do I fall into the big scheme of things, and can I? What is it that, you know? Ask people that you trust. You know, what could I be
right,
doing better? You know, singing lessons for me, and I'm still not the singer that I want, that I think I could be if I worked a little harder, or maybe I'll never be that, you know, singer with 12 octaves or something. But you have to know who you are. If you have 2 octave range, then
right.
work those notes in that 2 octaves. If you don't do that well with a certain style, don't sing it, you know. Um, so yeah, and if you're not getting hired, then maybe it's not the right sound for you. You know, yeah, we have to be realistic with ourselves, which is a hard thing.
I mean, that's actually, you know, that's something hard sometimes to grasp. You know, you want to take over the world when you're young, and then you understand at a certain point, oh, I can take over. Maybe, you know, there are certain limitations.
Mhm.
And in a way, as Stravinsky said, the more I limit myself, the more I free myself. So,
Interesting.
knowing your limitations is a great power. To exceeding it doesn't mean, and I find that to be very inspiring. There is, I think, yes, Aiden said thank you. You
Mm.
know, this is your journey has been so educational for me. You're an inspiration. So I wanna,
Thank you,
as we're
Aiden.
closing this chapter, I wanna echo those words, and I want to thank you, Nicole, for this wonderful hour and a half that you've dedicated to us. We feel blessed and excited. I mean, it's an extraordinary journey, and as a director, I look at that journey and I see clearly the patterns of somebody who trusts in her own talent, and you just kept going. You did not expect doors to open for you. You open them yourself, and I think that that is extremely. It means it's an empowering story, and I'm
Yeah.
so happy we got to share with everyone. If you want to recommend to those to those who are listening, if you want to recommend this conversation to friends, it'll be in the archives. Um, uh,
Love
I
it.
think starting tomorrow at Miami New Drama / Mastermind. There's
Fun.
the archive series. We have over, I think, close to 200 hours of content. And for those of you who asked about how to create your own word, we actually have a workshop, a long, I think 5 or 6 session workshop about workshop for solo creators. And Claudia shared here, Miami New Drama shared on the chat about the uh, lonely power, creating your own solo performance with my good friend Tom Dogsdale, is an extraordinary uh, educator and theater director who's traveled the world with his craft. So I recommend those of you who are interested in um, to check it out. It's there on our link. Nicole, thank you, thank you. This has been
Yeah.
outstanding.
Well, thank you. And wait, I just want to know, have you been interviewed on this one? Can I find that in the archives? Have you?
Yes, I did one. I interviewed I did it wasn't a I mean yes, Jessica was there, but I kind of got the mic and I did it was kind of like uh halfway through this journey. I have my own thoughts on art, and I shared it on the archives. So
Oh, I have to check that out because I just admire you and I would love to know more of your story because and I've heard you speak at many of a couple of openings I have to say because just when you all came to the colony I was doing a lot in New York so I wasn't able to catch everything and then but your the passion with which you speak and with which you work is just it's beautiful and it's inspiring for those of us who get to work with you and then just to know that whatever it is that you put on that stage at Miami New Drama, I know it's going to be a committed piece of work, and everybody in it is committed. So it says a lot. You reflect your company and everybody in it. So thank you for that. So passionate
very
and
good.
just so your
Too
level
kind.
of your level of what you want to see is right up there, your standards. So thank you for that. Thank you for your real gem to Miami, South Florida. Thanks.
Thank you for your words. These words are recorded. I'm gonna play it over and over again.
Right. It
Every
wasn't
time
me.
I'm
You
doubting
didn't
why
say
am
it.
I continuing in the theater world. But
Awesome.
really, and I can't
Thank
wait
you.
for us to go back in our journey that we're doing together
Yes,
with a wonderful world
I
with the
were.
great Jason Williams, the great Jason Williams, who will very soon be here in one of
Yes,
a very special mastermind classes, Cabaret.
I can't wait.
Um,
And I wore pink. My Alpha Smith, who was my character, I wore pink for her today. So
that's right.
one of her colors. And oh, somebody asked in the, I guess it was maybe online. They asked my character Alpha Smith, who was Louis's third wife.
Third one.
Um, he said, "Whatever happened to Alpha Smith after she left Louis?" And we don't really know. So if you're watching, I think it was Bobby. We don't really know whatever happened to her. I don't know. I have a story in my mind as a character what happened to her, but I don't think we ever really know what happened to her. after
I'm
1942.
sure rice and beans no more.
No more.
That's
Yeah,
for
she wasn't
sure.
eating rice and beans. Ah, yes, you have to see the play. It's such a wonderful production. No pun intended. All right.
All right. Thank you again
Thank you.
for your time. And I can't wait to see you again. And
Same
thanks
here.
everyone for joining us.
All right. Bye,
Thank you.
Michelle.
Bye.